Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 581st episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Stefan Georgi. He is the billion-dollar man, at least when it comes to copywriting. His work has helped create that much in sales. It's kind of good. But what is copywriting? It's so funny. I saw a meme just yesterday. Actually, it wasn't even a meme. It was I'm in a group on LinkedIn. And this gal was talking about how she introduced herself at a mixer and describing herself as a copywriter, and people saying, "Oh, you help people with legal stuff, right? Like a copyright on infringement." And it's right, WRITE, not copy, RIGHT. And I have had discussions like that with people from time to time. So how you write. I've always said marketing is just selling in print. So do you know how to write? In the 12 Weeks to Peak, one of the things I have you do is write every day. So Stefan talks about, writing helps clarify your thought process. He calls it a crucible. And I agree. You must study your prospects. All of my clients I'm working with right now on private consulting, I'm reading their stuff. I'm trying to understand their key differentiator, what their offer is, and why anybody should care. And I'm rewriting most of their stuff. And then we take that and we create the spoken word. Literally, how do they get on the phone? What do they say? What's the cadence? How soon do you make a recommendation? Do you even make a recommendation? When you take the time to write, it clarifies your thinking. So do it. Write more often to write more better, to make more money. And Stefan gets into some interesting little nuggets. He's got his own method, this RMBC method. And some of the little nuggets that he shares are awesome. Things I hadn't heard of on where to get unique information and insight when you're writing your copy. So you are in for a treat. When it comes to writing, if you want some help with that, check out John Buchan's Charm Offensive. Go to drunk.thesalespodcast.com. And believe me, you need it. My inbox in LinkedIn is just filled with crap. It's unbelievable how poor the content is, the pitches. It's just, God, don't be that. If nothing else, if you want to know how to write, look at what your competition is doing and do the opposite. Gosh, it's terrible. I mentioned 12 Weeks to Peak, 12weekstopeak.com. It's a free program. Welcome to your last hard business quarter of your life, but it will be hard. All right, 12weekstopeak.com. Come join us. My CRM quiz is still alive and well, crmquiz.com. So if you're wondering which one is right for you, take the quiz and you get a link to my calendar and we can talk about the results. Leadferno is, turn lurkers into leads. I love it. So go check my friend out. I actually had him on the podcast, on the sales podcast, had him on the CRM Sushi podcast. So leadferno.thesalespodcast.com. Check it out and let me know what you think of him. All right. But now let's bring on Stefan. Stefan Georgi, the man, the myth, the $700 billion copywriter, founder of the RMBC method. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
I'm good, Wes. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. So, you're spitting some words on the paper and making people just open their wallets. Is that what you do?
That is a big part of what I do. Yeah. Salesmanship in print,
I just started a program called 12 Weeks to Peak. And one of the first things I have people do, they have to commit to writing 700 words a day for 12 weeks. And people are already complaining. But I'm like, trust me, you got to do it. Dan Kennedy writes 1,200 words a day. He wrote 1,200 words on the day of his mother's funeral. I remember reading about that. So Would you say consistency is king?
I would. I think it's just like anything else. You got to build the reps and, build the muscle up. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. I write thousands of words a day, but to me, it's second nature. And I think regardless of if you want to be like a copywriter or you just want to be an effective leader and communicator, writing really helps you to clarify your thought process, and even the way you sell ideas, products, whatever it is. You're forced to sort of, it's like a crucible when you can put it down in the written form. So I think it's a very good habit for people to get into.
Yeah, but Stefan, I'm a manager. I'm in operations. I wear a bunch of hats. Do I really need to write? I'm too busy to write, man. I'm herding cats. I'm putting toothpaste back in the tube. How's this writing going to help me?
So I have two kind of thoughts on that. One is, you're probably still writing a lot anyway. Your emails, say you have a big team, you're doing like memos or communications with other leaders and stakeholders in your business, and so the more effectively you can communicate, the better. In that writing, side note, you're selling because you probably have the vision, and you have the values, the principles, the things that are driving your company or your business forward. But your ability to actually get everybody on board relies on you selling them on that vision. And there's a lot of kind of persuasive elements that come into that. So writing helps you there. And then beyond writing, I really think of copywriting as a methodology that it's just like a word for a process of selling or persuading. But frankly, you can do speaking, presenting, pitches, sales calls, any of these things. Really, it's still copywriting. It's the same element. So understanding those sorts of things are very valuable.
So for those that are interested, I mean, how does somebody land a copywriting job? Because I do a lot of sales training, I do consulting, I write. A guy just hired me today, and one of the things that I'm doing is helping them create their cadences for their salespeople, which includes voicemail scripts and an email follow up, maybe even a text follow up, short little direct mail pieces. So, there's some copywriting in there, but he's not hiring me solely as a copywriter.
Right.
Do you just have to put yourself out there? Hey, this is what I do. Or, is it a component of everything? And then you get a few good pieces and maybe you can leverage that, but how does somebody break into that space?
Yeah. If you want to be a copywriter, that's a funny question in a way, because like a lot of it is being like, hey, I'm a copywriter. On one level, it's as easy as labeling yourself that way. At the same time, actually getting people to say, cool, here's money, is an entirely different thing, right? So there's no formal degrees. There's courses and programs and products and blogs and all of that. But really, it's about understanding what copywriting really is. Studying it, studying the logic and structure, studying examples of it in the real world, whether those are ads, emails, infomercials, whatever it is. And then getting competent enough that when you tell someone you're a copywriter and they ask for proof, you can show them really samples or writing or point to things that demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. And that's a weird answer in a way, but it's really that simple. I mean, it was just bizarre because people can do copywriting as like a biz op thing, right? Like, hey, make money writing from home in your underwear, right? Can you write a sentence? Like, you could be a copywriter and get rich. And then that's like not really the case. But I mean, you can get rich, but it's you have to get good at it. But there's no real formal training or gateway, like guards gates around it. It's really more so just practice and understanding it, and then convincing somebody.
But I mean, well, you've probably been at it so long, you may not even remember. But because you can say, "Oh, I'm a copywriter," and,
Right.
and it's just like jujitsu. You can watch a bunch of YouTube videos,
Yeah.
but like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right?
Yeah.
You step on that mat and the other guy grabs you. It's like, oh yeah, my opponent has some say so in how this fight goes down.
Right.
So it becomes nerve wracking. Because a prospect may say, show me something you've written, but like the smart ones will say, show me how much your words have sold.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I can show you, I got 1,500 page website. I can say, see, I've written all this. I've written 2 books, but maybe I didn't make any money off of them, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you,
There's a track record, but early on, what I would do, I didn't mean to cut you off by the way, but
no, that's fine.
what I would do, what I find often is actually a lot of the clients are less worried about a specific sales number. Obviously, you get to like a level like me where you sold like $1 billion worth of stuff, and that sounds really good, and it opens lots of doors for me and things like that. But for aspiring copywriters, what I tell them is to really create custom samples for prospective clients. So, for example, going back to the website, be like, hey, I checked out your website. It looks great overall. One thing I noticed on your About Me page is that it doesn't talk about this, this, and this. And I watched a YouTube video where you talked about it. So I actually went ahead and rewrote it. Check it out. Let me know what you think, right? Or love your email marketing. I'm on your email list. One angle I haven't seen you guys hit is this angle. I think that could be really good. Check it out. In fact, hell, use it, right? And if it does well, come back to me, and I'd love to talk about, working with you more. Because as soon as you do that, it eliminates all those objections. The reason they don't hire, if I thought that anybody, right, whether it's a copywriter, a salesperson, an executive, if I truly thought that for every dollar I gave them, I would get $2 back, I would go raise all the money in the world to have unlimited money to give those people. The reason we don't hire a copywriter or whoever else is because we don't believe the ROI is there, and we can't envision what working with them actually looks like. So if they can actually give you that, it eliminates all of these objections, and it makes it much easier for a prospective client to say yes to the copywriter.
how many of your clients, well, at this point, I mean, you're experienced and known, but like,
Yeah.
on average, if you look back, like a typical new client, have they gone through a lot of copywriters in the past and you're replacing someone, or are you like one of the first times that they've outsourced that? Maybe they've tried to do it internally, or they just realize it's time to step up their game and finally bring in an outsider. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely all over the map on that, because I run a copywriting mastermind with 250 plus copywriters, and they range from earlier on in their journey to more advanced. So, and part of what we're doing is helping a lot of them to get jobs and opportunities and things of that nature. So I have a lot of experience with this, and yeah, it runs the gamut. Some people, because of the problem we talked about, that anyone can go out and say I'm a copywriter, there's definitely a lot of businesses that have gone through multiple writers and had really bad experiences and become jaded, things like that. There's also companies that have done it all through organic social, and they're growing that way, or whatever it may be, traditional agencies, and then somebody told them you should hire a copywriter, and they're hiring one for the first time, which has its own sets of challenges, because there's a lot of stuff that they may not understand about how the process works, and you may have to educate that client. So it's all over the map, to be honest with you.
How often are you trying to like find their voice versus just saying, hey, I'm going to write in my voice, take it or leave it, right? It's like, I'm going to bring in a whole new avenue for you, right? Like, here's my style, we're going to run with it. Or do you alter your style to match their image?
Yeah, typically it's the latter. It's altering the style, which is a very important part and a challenging part. So, I've written for a pretty diverse group of people. I've written for Mike Tyson, Sir Nick Faldo, Tony Horton, who was very difficult voice-wise. Nice guy, but very difficult to like with the voice, actually. With women, like a celebrity doctor named Dr. Claudia Aguirre, just all over the place, right? And so part of my talent, I guess, and this comes through practice too, is being able to kind of hear their voice in my head and write as them. It also means watching tons of YouTube videos, listening to podcast interviews, really doing all of these sorts of things. Sometimes if it's a brand where it's not spokesperson driven, but most brands have sort of a brand voice, and they want things written in that perspective or from that perspective. So it's normally that way. If you were originating like a brand new product line or a new brand or offer or things, then maybe you'd have a bit more leeway and have more input. But normally you are you're more of like the vessel for their voice, I guess you would say.
Yeah, that's cool. Nick Faldo, huh? What were you writing for him?
There's a golf, basically how to hit drives longer and straighter. So the golf space is basically that's what everyone wants, right? It's like eliminate slices and the hooks, hit my drives like longer and further. So it was a kind of an informational training program, like videos, things like that, through a golf company, and it was cool. I got to go out to Florida and spent like a day or two, like more or less directing him, which is a weird thing because you're like a copywriter, and then suddenly you become a director for these, infomercials. And whether it's him, I remember I directed this guy named, I think it's Henry Catrini, who was in like the Jack Reacher movies. This is a couple years back, and then one of the guys who connected us is like friends with Mark Wahlberg. So there's always like people in the room, and I'm like directing this Hollywood actor, and I'm like,
Right.
how I'm doing. I'm like a barely graduated college philosophy major. Like what's going on? But it's also very fun to do that. So yeah, that
Sure.
with Nick, it was about golf stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, like, were you creating a landing page, or was it a series of things? Was it the landing page and the video and some of the training, like all the above?
Yeah, this one was a like the video, but it was like the easiest way to describe it is just like an online infomercial, essentially. We tried a new format for it where it was sort of like a podcast, like almost like Dan Patrick show interview style, where we got a guy from the Golf Network to kind of like be the host and talk to Sir Nick Faldo, and Sir Nick Faldo was sharing this ball striking breakthrough and talking about the extended sweet spot where your driver is more forgiving than you think, and here's the key to hitting drives correctly. So those are fun to do because you're innovating a lot. Sometimes it's like you're writing a script for a spokesperson who just stands in front of a camera for 40 minutes and talks. But yeah, I've written, all kinds of stuff. And I think that's actually important for your audience, right? Because they're like, is this relevant to me? Like, I'm an investor in like a NFT/Swiss watch project where I wrote our tweets because it's like the storyboard of like the brand, right? So it can be tweets, it can be your email marketing, it can be fundraisers. Sadly, a guy in my mastermind program like died a week ago. He was in his 30s and he was in Greece. And so I wrote a GoFundMe page for him and an email to my audience. And we raised like $40,000 for his mom to repatriate his body and the funeral costs and things, right? So sometimes people get really wrapped up in copywriting being specifically writing ads. And I do lots of that. But I guess the point to make to your audience would be really what I'm kind of playing with these days is like, what I really do is persuasive communication, right? It's emotionally driven, highly persuasive communication. And that, for me, it's taken the form of the written word lots of times, but it can take many other forms as well.
Yeah. Emotionally driven, persuasive communication. That's a writer downer, man. I just wrote that down.
Thanks, man. I'm glad I got one. I got one. I'm on the board now.
No, I've been writing. Write to clarify your thought process. It's a crucible. Create custom sample. I've been writing a bunch.
Hey, all right, awesome.
I didn't tell you.
All right, good.
I can't stroke your ego the whole time. I got to just sprinkle them in here every now and then.
Appreciate that.
So, where to go with this? Because I think like copywriting is so misunderstood by most people that I talk with. They either haven't. A lot of people don't even know what it means. They literally think it's the copyright on like a trademark, like a legal thing. It's like, no, it's like putting words on paper, getting people to give you money. So how is there always a I'm drawing a blank, a sample or the thing you're writing up against, right? Because I got to compare you to something else.
Yeah.
What's that called?
Well, there's like a control is one way of phrasing it.
Yeah. I was drawing a blank on that because they have to. If they don't have a control, then they don't. Obviously, they know it's like, hey, if I pay you $100,000 and we do a campaign and we make 10 million, okay, that was pretty good. But if they paid you 100,000, you did 10 million, but their last launch did 11 million, then maybe they lost $1 million.
Yeah.
But then again, it could have been the market. Things could have changed. They bring you in and then the Fed raises interest rates and blah, blah, blah. All this stuff happens. It's like, it's not your fault. You may have written maybe they only lost $1 million. They would have lost 3 million if they didn't have better writing, so
yeah.
How can you protect yourself and say, hey, look, my stuff did move the needle?
Yeah, that's a great question. And establishing kind of baselines and metrics that like what does success look like, right? So kind of what you're saying there. Sometimes you're going and they have an existing, ad or sales funnel or whatever it is, and so perfect. We know what those metrics all look like. Our goal is to exceed those metrics, and it could be around conversion rate, average order value, lifetime value. Lots of different ROAS, right? Return on ad spend. Like, so sometimes they're like, we don't care about anything else, but if we can spend for every, dollar we spend on advertising, we're getting at least $1.50 back. We're happy, right? And like, perfect. So now we know that's the case. Although we're also like, from right, how do you protect yourself? Okay, cool. Do you have a history of achieving that ROAS, right? If you've never achieved that before, then we need to make sure it's not like you can't the copy it's like so essential and important, and yet it's also just one piece of it, right? And so threading that needle, I guess, is a challenge. But usually you look at what's established, what the metrics are, and what success looks like. If there's a existing control, it's easier because you're like, all right, cool, these were the numbers. If we do better than these numbers, we're happy. And the hardest ones are the ones where there's none of that really, and they don't know what they're doing. And that's when you're an earlier on copywriter, you get stuck with those clients more often, and it's way more challenging. And the luxury of becoming more experienced and accomplished is typically you're only working with clients who kind of know what they're doing, have existing assets you can compare against them, and it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, but we all have to cut our teeth somewhere, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Early on, though, I'm always saying, like, and I'm sure it's like this with a lot of things, right? It's just like, just get the reps in, though. Like, I'm always telling, early copywriters, it's like, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about like literally anything except for obsessing over getting reps in and becoming the best, right? Because if you do that, if you won't become the best unless you get the reps in. But when you do that, and if you do become the best, the money will follow every time. Like,
Yeah.
it's very now. What you do with the money is you might you can be an idiot, you can save it, you can invest it, you can grow it, but like the money follows, right? Like money follows excellence. Let's put it that way. This is a writer downer that I just made up that I like, so I'm going to write it down for myself. But it's true, right? Money tends to follow excellence.
Yeah. You always tell people it's like if the NBA disbanded or said, hey, we're going to cut one team from the league and it's the Lakers, would LeBron have any problems getting picked up?
Right.
Right. He's not going unemployed.
Exactly.
So it's a little longer way to say money follows excellence. So when somebody comes to you, how much are you recommending what's needed? Like, let's take this Sir Nick Faldo example.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, look, we need 7,000 word landing page. We need a 32-minute, video commercial. We need, 297 tweets. Do you go, okay, that's what I'll do? Or do you sit with them and say, here's what I recommend. I recommend a 3,000 word landing page, a 7-minute video, and 57 TikToks, instead of tweets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends on the client and their level of knowledge and expertise and their processes. So if they're pretty dialed in and they're like, look, this is working, we got this on rinse and repeat, you're essentially like, you can be creative within the realm of creating this copy, but we're going to take it, plug it in, and we know it'll work. Just do that. And you're like, all right, great. So with the Nick Faldo one, it was like that on the advertising side and customer acquisition, as far as like running Facebook ads and their back end and stuff like that. They did give me, total freedom as far as the format and trying to do an innovative format with a sort of podcast style, things of that nature. But I didn't have to make tons of recommendations on other parts of the funnel or the sales process. Now, another example, I'm working with, I'm not gonna say their name, but the dude basically, you can Google it. I don't think he would care that I bring this up, right? I'm not gonna say the name, but the guy invented the as seen on TV logo, right? Like the guy literally invented it. So, and a few years ago, they did 750 million in sales in 1 year, right? That was the revenue. last year it was 350 million. So which most people will be like, oh my God, 350 million. To them, they're like, this is crisis, code red, sales are going down, TV's dying.
55, 60% drop. Yeah.
We got to get online. We got to do VSLs. You're the best. Help us. Right. So they hired me. But with them, and they were kind of during our negotiation process, it was like, we did 350 million. We did almost $1 billion. We've done billions and billions and billions. I'm like, that's great, but you haven't sold online. It's different, right? So, you can tell me you guys have the resources to figure it out, but kind of being like, hey, take a haircut on what you're charging up front or other things because you're a big company, like doesn't actually work, because now you're in a whole new realm and a whole new, like era and area. So it's going to be different, right? And in that case, even today, I had a call with them and another celebrity doctor who's the spokesperson we're using. But after the call with the doctor, I was talking to them and telling them about like all these things they need to do in their funnel that will drastically increase their average order value. And they're just like writing down notes. So in a case like that, even though they're a big established company, they're like leaving their arena and entering mine. So then you have a responsibility really to help give them that. And then they can listen or not listen. These guys are great clients and they're listening, but you do run into sometimes they don't listen. And at that point, hopefully you figure that out before you take their money so you don't have to deal with it after, but otherwise you can only help people, save people from themselves so much before eventually you gotta be like, all right, you'll learn. talk to you in 6
Tell
months.
people, you can't save every puppy in the pound.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
What do you do with when they try to change what you create? Because I've done a lot of work with a certain company, 14 years. I've been a certified partner. I wrote a book on their software. They've evolved, a lot of layoffs and reorganizations and rebranding, and they got new marketing people, and they came to me and said, hey, we need some help. And they assigned me to this, young person that meant really well, but doesn't know this product and certainly doesn't know it like me. Right. And so they start changing what I created. And I'm like, you're changing what I gave you to be what you would have written. You hired me because what you have written is not working. Now, fortunately, because of my unique experience with this company, I could kind of put my foot down. I went a couple of layers over their heads because I'm friends with the owners, so it was a little different. I couldn't have done that with someone else. But how do you handle that if they start, taking that red pen to what you create?
Yeah, I like what you did and how you approach that is pretty comparable. I have the same conversation of essentially, look, you hired me because I'm the best in the world at what I do. And while you may not understand it, pretty much every choice as far as words, structure, etc., like in what I've given you here, was intentional. There's like science and psychology and experience and all these other things behind it. So while you may not, I'm happy to have conversations if there's certain big ideas or areas, or if something's not factually accurate and you want to, and I've missed it. Of course, I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm happy to receive feedback. But when it comes to editing things, like it's really better that we test this version first. And if they really, one nice thing with copywriting is, and really funnels in general, is you can, if they're really being persistent, you're like, all right, let's split test it, right? Let's split test your version versus my version, and we'll see what happens. And then honestly, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, my version wins because I know I've been doing it for a really long time and sold like $1 billion worth of stuff. So, and sometimes it doesn't. And then I'm like, oh, cool. Wow. Hey, I learned something. Right. But, that's my one sort of diplomatic, all right, we can split test it. The problem too is like, the worst for me is when there's too many cooks where I'll send it to a team and suddenly, on the Google Doc, there's like anonymous otter, anonymous dinosaur, and you're like, oh God, right? And then it's like Deb from accounting is saying like, well, I think that I would say, find instead of discover. And you're like, guys, like there's a million ways to say things, but like, just like, that's great. You would have said it that way. I would have said it this way. You hired me for a reason. Say the way I said it, So yeah, I hate those situations. Honestly, it's very frustrating. But I don't know. It is what it is. I try to just put put my foot down, kind of like what you did, but every now and then it happens.
When can you get to the point that you can start charging royalties versus just a flat fee? Like, hey, I'll write this for $3,000 or a penny a word or whatever formula you want to use, so flat fee versus either royalty or even like a percentage of sales, and like how hard is it to track things like that? Because you got to have a good relationship with the company if you're going to get paid some kind of commission or royalty, right?
Yeah, that's the thing is like it's really easy for a new copywriter to get a royalty deal or rev share deal, right? Because lots of people want to pay on the performance, and everyone in their head is the most virtuistic, like, best person to work with ever, and is going to be great with payments and all that. The problem for young copywriters is they don't know the clients, and they end up getting screwed over a lot. And so I tell younger copywriters to generally not do those types of deals unless it's a very established company with a great reputation and they're sort of vetted. So it's not hard to get them, but like you want to get them with the right people, to your point. And then, you need to have like an actual contract with like a right to audit and financial reporting that is coming within, 3 days at the end of each month and all these sorts of things. So, that all plays an important role. But yeah, the biggest thing is really due diligence on who you do those deals with. Because I mean, I've had it where I've had, I don't know, just I've been stiffed, and I've also had companies be amazing with their royalties. So it's all over the place.
Yeah. Is it maybe easier to say, okay, if, flat fee, maybe plus like a little incentives, hey, if this exceeds the target, then a bump. If it exceeds it by 50%, another bump. Exceeds it by 200%, another bump.
Yeah,
almost like a salesperson, right? I mean, some people have accelerators. Hey, you hit 200% of quota, we're going to give you a whole big fat raise.
Yeah, 100%. No, I love those. Yeah, so they can be like performance bonuses, exactly like that. If it hits 400 sales a day, there's a $50,000 bonus, right? If it hits 10 million in revenue, there's a $50,000 bonus. So yeah, those things are great. And you can do it with equity as well. I mean, one of the things that I created like a performance kind of agency with two of my former proteges turned partners, where it's part of my whole ecosystem, and I won't get into all the details, but essentially we're working with established 8-figure plus companies, and we're writing whole funnels for them and all the copy with us and other high level copywriters that we bring in, and we're doing it for a percentage of revenue, or in some cases equity deals as well. So where equity makes sense if it's like an 8-figure business, but they're going to start a new company or a new brand, and we're really going to be instrumental in a lot of the pieces of it. So we did that with like a experienced operator in the health supplement space who's starting a pet supplement company. And basically it was like 15% for us out the gate. And then, 1 million in sales, we get 5%, 5 million in sales, we get 5%, 10 million in sales, we get 5%, for a total of 30%, which is great because, we're already incentivized because we have 15%, but of course we want to make sure that the business gets to these different levels. So I love deals like that, honestly. But again, it's got to be people you trust and are going to be good for it.
So you're acting almost like a realtor or an attorney. I mean, you're getting paid for performance, right? There's no guarantee, no base.
But these ones we're doing now, we're doing a base, but it's a much smaller base. So say hiring me would be like 75 to 100 grand. And even basically like, all right, it's almost up to you, right? Because what do you give us? We're going to go hire 2 writers, A-list writers from our mastermind. So the people at the very top of the top, and they would maybe charge you $25,000 or $30,000. We're going to hire 2 of them for, $5,000 each or $10,000 each, because they want a little bit of money so that they are incentivized and they're not like purely doing this on spec work, right? But you're going to get them for a fraction of that. Then we're going to work with them. We're going to develop the ideas, like go through their copy, rewrite stuff. Like, it's basically the best of all worlds. And you're getting, 2 great pieces of copy or funnels basically to test against each other for maybe a fifth of what you would pay to me, but we're getting the upside. So that's the way we're doing that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. Honestly, it's gone really well. I mean, I'm not advertising at all. We've got like 5 people who like are all very experienced, like anywhere from I mean, the low end's like 30 million a year in revenue, up to like 60 plus million. And my goal is to do 60 of those deals per year. And I think we can do them actually. And I think it'll, make tons of money, but also I'm excited about the data too, right? As a marketer and a copywriter, because if I'm having our hands in all of these businesses and they're in different niches and categories, and they acquire customers in different ways. So all that visibility into all of that data around what's working with like copy, with ads, with optimization stuff, with like the back end. I mean, I just think that's gonna it's so valuable to just as a marketer and a teacher and a coach. And frankly, I can even aggregate all that, turn into like some kind of like AI powered SaaS probably in a couple years down the road. But pretty pumped about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get to look under the hood of so many businesses, and it's like there's just a million ways to make money.
Yeah, there really are, right? And that's the best part. It's like that sounds weird. You almost sound like flippant about it, but it's like not hard to make money. It's just knowing people they don't know what they don't know. But once you start to, and sometimes it just takes experience and time, but once you gain that experience, like it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat to see how quickly you can really ramp something up.
Yeah, for sure. So what is your method? What is this? RMBC? Did I get that right?
You did get that right.
I got to change tabs here. I got all your tabs open.
Appreciate
that.
that.
RMBC method.
Yeah, buddy.
It sounds like a copywriter made up a name or something. Are you just selling me? Are you trying to persuade me with the written word with an
Never
acronym?
do that. How dare you? Yeah, I mean, I'm big on acronyms, but it is a really good methodology. And I think really the parts that are most relevant. So it's research, mechanism, brief, and copy. That's what RMBC stands for. The most relevant parts probably for everybody listening are the research and the mechanism, right? So really the story of this is I had a client in 2014 that was trying to do the Hollywood model, where they're like, hey, we want to produce, as many infomercials as we can. For every 10, we think 1 or 2 will be a blockbuster. A couple will be slightly profitable. Some will be slightly unprofitable. Some will completely bomb, right? Whatever. So we're just playing a numbers game. And so they were like, if you can write 4 infomercials, essentially like VSLs, which are really just online infomercials, right? If you can write 4 of those a month, we'll pay you $1,000 per. If you can write 8 per month, we're going to pay you $2,000 per. And if you can write 12 per month, we're going to pay you $4,000 per. So I'm like sitting there, my mid 20s, whatever, like you're telling me I have an opportunity to earn $48,000 a month. Plus there's some other stuff that I could basically get to like 60 to 80,000 a month. I probably never made more than $10,000 in a month before. And that was like, thought it was balling. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to do it now, but that's a ton of writing. You're writing, 100,000 words a month or whatever it is. So I had to figure out a way to kind of systematize stuff and to make it like an assembly line where I was writing really good sales copy, but doing it in a very efficient manner. Because obviously, if nothing was a blockbuster, they wouldn't keep paying me and doing this deal, right? So that's how it started. And really, like I realized that there's sort of, I'm like, well, what are the steps when I'm writing these that, how does it go? So the first step is research. But what's cool about my research process is it's just going deeper. It's more emotionally driven, right? So it's like, what for your prospect, what are their hopes and dreams? What are their, victories and failures that they've experienced thus far as it comes to trying to solve whatever pain point it is that your product or solution solves? Stuff around like the other products they've used and what do they like and what do they dislike, but really emotionally driven. So like, let's go to losing weight for an example. Somebody goes to sell you like a magic weight loss pill or some crap or whatever it is, but it's like they're always like lose 40 pounds in 5 days, miracle pill. I'm talking about kind of the spammy crap out there, right? But even there, what's funny is that's actually not the motivator for people. No one sits around being like, I want to lose 40 pounds in the next like 15 days. I mean, sure, they might have a number sometimes, but what they're really thinking about is like, I'm going on a vacation this summer and my husband hasn't looked at me this way and like in 5 years, and I wish he could look at me this way again, right? It's that my kids are getting older and they're seeing me and I'm setting a bad example for them, and at night I sit up thinking like, what if they end up overweight like me because of like they don't know any better? Maybe what if they get teased at school because of me and I'm causing pain for my child? or, one of a million different things. And so we want to go deeper than just like 45 plus females who are overweight and looking to drop 10 pounds and come from a household median income of, $55,000 or more. Like, that's cool. But like, we want to go into like the psychographic kind of emotional component of it. And my research process, basically using what I just said, does that. So where do you get those answers? Usually, honestly, like forums is the best place. There's like forums for everything. And so if you just search like, weight loss forums, it can be high ticket phone sales forums, and you'll have like high ticket closers like talking about their wins, talking about stuff that sucks about what they're doing, talking about why they're doing it, right? You can find it for anything, like golf, huge one, right?
Dude, Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit, exactly.
I'm so I've had an account on Reddit forever, but like barely used it. Like literally for like 12 years, or I don't I was looking, it was a long time, however long it's been around.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I spend so much time on there now because you can't.
It's a gold mine.
People. But then I realized, so I use my own account, right? I'm like, I don't know this whole thing about fake accounts. So I finally made an anonymous account because oh my gosh, there's crap out there. And I'm like, oh, I remember this one guy, this joke. It's like, it was a writer. It's like, hey, if I die, tell the police all those tabs. It really was for research. It's like,
yeah,
you go down some crap.
Man.
And I don't know if I should be telling this, or maybe I don't know. I've told it in my private groups, but it was a long time ago, almost 10 years ago. I was writing a blog post on like the top 10 sales books. And so I did a Google search, boom, find a bunch of pages, go, okay, yeah, and like I had, if I found whatever 5 or 6 blog posts, something similar, and I had like 80% of the books, I'd read them. I'm, okay, yep. And I kept seeing this one, and I'm like, how come I don't know this book? And it was this pickup artist. Right. So I tell my wife, I'm like, I'm ordering a book. It is for research. And it's like right on cue. It's totally sales.
Oh, yeah.
100% sales. And so now one of my main slides when I give talks, like I have a couple of slides that I'll just use all the time. Right. And one is sales equals dating pipeline. And I've got the pipeline. Make eye contact, ask her to dance, get her number, ask her to dinner, meet the family, pick out rings, tie the knot, and sales, research, prospect, phone call, boom, 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 boom. It's like right on. So it's like, I'm subscribed to all the, like Instagram, especially. Like I follow a few dating coaches, women and men. And I get good content from those folks for sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked to like 20 something single guys who they basically look at it like a sales funnel where they're like, like Tinder's like my ad, Instagram's my landing page. It's like there's a whole thing that these guys, it's so funny, but it makes sense. They're probably smart to look at it that way, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know anything about those. A friend of mine I went to college with, actually, she came up from San Diego a while ago, 6 years ago, maybe. And she came to the house. Well, we went out to the wineries, we go to dinner and come back to the house. And my wife and I are just like mesmerized. She's showing us Tinder. And we're like, this is how people date today. It's like, I'm 52, right? It's like 6 years ago. I mean, she's my age. So, she's mid 40s, single mom. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. She's like, yeah, this sucks. So I couldn't imagine, because I talk to people all the time, young, like my sons are 25, 24, daughter's 22, and I got a bunch more. But so now talking with their friends and kids they've grown up with, and we're talking to them, they're sharing their stories of dating and their woes of not dating. I'm like, just go talk to her, and like sometimes they're like, what? It's like person to person, like, oh, okay, never mind. Oh, but we digress.
We do, but that's a funny story. And it is. I mean, I've got some this isn't try to a one-up story, but the same company in 2014, like it was a lot of like all kinds of stuff, and they did like alternative health, and the one partner basically was like wanted me, and we ended up doing it, right? But he wanted me to try to sell like a pump, like a male,
Oh,
what pump,
no.
right? So he's like, he starts ordering all these pumps online and shipping them to like my house where I'm living at the time. So I'm like, just for like a month, they're just showing up at my house. And then, the first one, I'm like, what the F? And like put it in a drawer or something. But like so many come that they're just like on my counter. And then like my cleaning people like show up one day and they're like just looking at me like I'm the biggest, like perverted degenerate ever. And I'm like, how do I don't speak Spanish well enough to explain to them like what's going on here.
Gosh.
But yeah, there's some fun things like that come from being a copywriter. And
so now
anyway,
just mail those to your enemies.
Yes, that's a good idea.
I mailed glitter to one guy. There's a service you can mail glitter to your enemies.
It's hilarious, actually. That's a great.
It was like $11. It was the best $11 I ever spent.
That's excellent.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
all right, so that's research.
What was it? Research, mechanism, and brief.
Yeah,
copy,
brief, and then copy. Yeah.
Nice.
So research, I think we covered, right? But forums, and then for products like Amazon reviews, 5-star, 1-star. So what do they like love about your competitors' products? Go to the 5-star reviews. What do they hate about them? Go to the 1-star reviews and get that down. And
sure.
This also works, by the way, for like, say you're selling like a real estate investing coaching program. You can still go to Amazon and find books about like how to, get rich as a real estate investor. And you'll still see in the reviews, like people, even on Amazon, they overshare. The big thing about forums and reviews in general is that people are big oversharers. And so they're sharing a lot. It's not like the book was pretty good and, I used it and it's like, well, 5 years ago, and people just tell you stories and throw in all these details, but that's great. Because here's a big takeaway that really is important for people who are going to do writing or sales in general, right? Is you can just copy and paste those big things people are saying, like about their hopes, their dreams, their victories and failures. And you can literally use that language and repeat it back to them, whether it's in the written word or even verbally. And then when you speak to your prospect, they're like, oh my God, how do they know me? It's like they're speaking my language. It's like they're inside my head. And because you're taking, what they've said and you're literally repeating it back to them. So that's like the huge kind of advantage of doing this on the research side.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing with an anonymous profile is that, I learned, right, most people on Reddit, at least, are anonymous. And because they're anonymous, holy smokes. Talking about oversharing, they don't hold back, right? Because like I'm using my Sales Whisper account and I'm going into like CRM forums and I'm answering questions and building up karma and all this. But then you start going down the pickup artist. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't need that one. People, they overshare. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. Good advice. Amazon. Yeah. I look at the top, but most people, I just had a guy on, I'm drawing a blank, but we were talking about that like the best reviews, your score, you want to be like 4.6 to 4.8. You want some negative, some non 5-star reviews, because most of us, I think you said 85 or 86% of people go to the negative reviews first.
Right.
Say, show me the worst. Okay. If the worst is bearable, all right, I'll go back to the top. Okay, I'll give it a try.
Totally. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not heard that stat, but I can totally see it because I do that. I might read a couple of the good ones, but I'm like, all right, what's the dirt, right? And I go right to that.
Yeah. And if there's no negatives, you're like, okay, what? And because if you've done significant volume, you're going to let down a few people.
Right.
Some people are just asses, and then you're just not going to make them happy. So, all right. So you need to see some of those.
Yeah. One thing that I got to spend a couple of days with like Grant Cardone in Miami, like a week ago or a week and a half ago. It was like a small group. It was like this. It was cool. It was like it was invite only, free. He basically wants us to promote this thing in January, but lots of intimate time with him. But one thing he talked about was like if 50% of your audience and like your market like hates you, then like you've made it essentially, which is a very Grant Cardone type line. I don't know if it has to be 50%, but I got his point, right? Which is the fact that if there's a lot of people out there, the fact that they're talking about you and there's strong feelings about you, is a really, kind of powerful and important thing. You'd rather have that
50.
than not. 50 is 50 strong, but you'd rather
50
have
might
people
be high. So there's
Yeah.
a guy that I know that is a proven entity. I'm actually going out in October down to Austin to see him. And he grew up in the radio space and is still an ad writer for TV and radio primarily, and has an agency and blah, blah, blah. And I remember years ago in one of his events, he was talking about this, and especially going back many years when they were doing like focus groups and whatnot, and they would bring people in to listen to a song, and they may still do this in music, but they said that if 10% of the people, that they needed 10% of the people to hate the song.
Yeah.
So if 10% hated it, they knew they'd have something. But if everybody was like, yeah, it's pretty good, they're like, okay, this is a loser.
Right.
So they needed
right.
some to go, this is the best song ever. And others go, I will drive my car off a bridge to avoid hearing this song anymore. So they needed 10% hostile.
Yeah.
But typical Grant Cardone, he'll overdo things by 5x.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's go ahead and 10x it. All right. Yeah,
100% of people hate you, then you're on your way. No.
Yeah.
Oh
man.
So let me do the mechanism real quick, because it's I'll explain brief and copy, but those are, I think, less crucial. The first two are the parts that really anyone can use, right? Because again, if you're selling, and whether it's B2B, direct to consumer, whatever it is, really understanding, your prospect and what their hopes and dreams are, their frustrations, like, the emotional component of it. Because ultimately we're emotional, right? We're not, Jim Quick said this, which I really liked. It was like, human beings aren't logical, we're biological. And I was like, that was a writer downer for me, because it's so
Who said
true,
that?
right? Jim Quick. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a
the memory guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I was at a thing that he was speaking at, but that's I don't remember anything else from that talk. I mean, sure, it was great, but that one just stood out because as a copywriter, I've always talked about speak to the heart first and the brain second, right?
Yep.
You get them emotional. They need their heart has to want it, and then they basically spend the rest of the time trying to convince their logical brain that's really a good idea. So then you do have logic in your sales argument, but it's emotion first, logic second for that reason. So the mechanism, the M, is really just like the easiest way to explain it is you're explaining the real reason why your prospect has not solved their problem or pain point before, and then you're showing them how what you're offering is a unique solution that will kind of actually help them to solve it. So basically, the reason this is important is by the time like your prospect gets to you, it's very rare that they have never tried to solve their problem or their pain point before. So going back to weight loss, right? It's very unlikely that somebody's like, I've never tried to diet before, but heck, I'll give it a shot. It's like they've tried like a million diets. They've, keto, low carb, intermittent fasting, Atkins, calorie in, calorie out, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig. They bought little miracle pills online. They've done all this stuff. So, you've got to be able to come up with a way that matches your product and that is truthful, though, but of being like, hey, like, here's the maybe you find that there's some hormone in the gut that scientists just discovered, and that this hormone essentially can slow down your metabolism, and we have more of this hormone as we get older. And you discover that, an ingredient in your supplement has been shown to like reduce this hormone level. And now there's studies showing that because of that, your metabolism doesn't slow down, it stays fast, right? So it's like, hey, the real reason you haven't been able to lose weight could be because of this like hormone that scientists only just now discovered. It's slowing down your metabolism. There's more of this hormone as you get older. But here's the good news. There's actually a way to, help to control levels of this hormone in your gut, and then the solution is blah, blah, like product, right? And sometimes it's also just as much as like unique differentiators. So an example I've been riffing on lately is like even like a fishing pole. Because I have people come to me all the time and they're like, I'm selling a product that doesn't have a unique differentiator or unique mechanism. Like, what if I'm selling a fishing pole? And then it's like, all right, well, what am I looking at? Like, what's the pole made out of, right? Is it like titanium, like aluminum, alloy? Like, I don't even know what the different like materials that a fishing pole is made out of, right? And you're like, maybe if the material is a little bit different, are there any advantages? Does that make it more lightweight and more durable? If you go to forums, right, you might find that people say that actually their arms and shoulders get tired as they get older, or like, that like, there's too much pull or tension. So, maybe the materials enable like you to have a more lightweight pull, which means you can fish for longer and your shoulder is not going to hurt as much, right? Maybe the reel has more RPMs, and maybe there's a reason that actually is important. Maybe there's a study that shows you that if you can, have more RPMs on the reel, you're less likely to have like the line break, or you can pull in a bigger fish. There's like a million ways to make a fishing pole sexy and unique. And so, you just got to do the research and not be lazy. But this is really the most important part. I mean, I can tell you, you give me anything, right? Give me like any kind of widget and I can make it sexy and do it truthfully, because I'll find the hidden benefits, right? So
there has to be a reason. Yeah. I've yelled at people, I'm like, why are you in business? If there's nothing unique about you, why the hell are you in business? How can you look yourself in the face and charge people money if you're no better? Just shut your freaking doors. Because I'm just going to go buy the next guy. But no. Oh, give me that, right? Once they start defending themselves, I'm like, there we go. And they're
love that.
I never really thought about it. That's why I get the big bucks. Let's keep going. You got to get in their face sometimes. Because they'll be the Debbie Downers, or Eeyore, right? Nobody loves me. Like, why do people buy from you? And that's why. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love that. No, I agree. I think sometimes it's just people being, for lack of a better word, just kind of lazy about it and not wanting to like go a layer deeper. So, they just like act like they're selling some commodity, and it's like, all right, cool. So you want to get, you want to get paid low prices, sell a commodity, right? If you want to get paid, charge higher rates, premium pricing, things like that, then sell a unique like asset or something special, right? And so love that. I'll finish RBC pretty quickly. B for brief is really just questions you ask, which the way I've applied it historically is before you write, but this really could be applicable in a lot of ways. So for example, like, okay, what's what's the story of like the product being created, right? So was it created by a spokesperson, the founder, a company? Why did they struggle, prior to inventing or creating this product, or discovering it? Like things that are basically going to come up, whether it's in your copy or your ads. And then rather than having to rewrite it all the time, just like get a really good baseline of it, right? So, kind of like, what's the number one benefit? Like just answering basic questions like that. And then copy is really just like an outline for, people think about this in like long format infomercial, but it kind of works for everything. It's really like your leader, your opening, where you're basically calling out your prospects, pain point. It doesn't have to be like a really visceral, brutal one. Maybe the pain point is just that they want more sales, or that they, are frustrated about something, but you're kind of, you're calling out that you understand that, you're promising them a solution, you're, teasing that it's a unique solution, you're kind of teasing that mechanism, you're creating curiosity around it so that, they really want to know, like you're teasing why this is unique. So they're kind of curious about it, throwing in social proof, things like that. And then quick background story, like, hey, again, from the brief, like, I'm like you, I used to also be in pain, or I used to have this problem. I don't anymore. Here's what happened. I discovered unique mechanism of the problem. That's number 3. Unique mechanism of the solution. That's number 4. That led to me, either creating the product or going out and finding a company that had the solution. And now we're introducing solution, right? So that's sort of number 5, the product build up and reveal. And then it's like the close, where you're basically just, hey, every other product's not as good. This is like the best, it should be $1 gajillion, but it's not. Like the price sort of justification and the fundamental is there, but it's really a pretty basic structure. It kind of models the hero's journey in some respects, but it's a lot easier to do that when you've done research, the mechanism and the brief parts, because then you have everything to actually craft your sales message or copy.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you got to have a structure. I always tell people you have to master the basics before you can break them.
Yes.
Right. Everybody wants to be this guru. And it's like, you don't get the breakthroughs till you master the fundamentals. And I don't care what it is. I equate everything to jujitsu nowadays, right? Like my instructor, he's done this for 35 years, but we still open every day with the same warm-ups. These fundamental movements And now, as I've done this now 5.5 years, and I find myself, it's like I'm better at jujitsu now, not because I'm doing fancy moves. It's that 1/10 of a second earlier, I'm recognizing where you're going, and I'm doing the fundamental move, and I'm getting out of the way.
Mm.
I'm not allowing you to get into position.
Yeah.
I'm just moving myself. I'm not moving you. I'm not rolling fancy. I'm not doing triple somersaults, backflips with a half twist. I'm just move the hips, move the body. The same thing we do, up and down the mats twice every day.
Yeah.
And yes, now sometimes I do some crazy move in the heat of the moment, but and then we'll go back. Oh, what was that? Oh yeah. Oh, hey, maybe that's something, but only because for 5.5 years, 6 days a week, twice I've gone up and down doing this one drill, so, but everybody wants to jump right to the championship. I'm like, no,
Right.
You don't get there. You got to go right. Are you one of those, write it all out by longhand 500 times before you get the spirit of it? I mean, I've never ever done that. I have written a little bit longhand to kind of get the vibe, but I don't know. I tell people, like, I have conversations with myself. I'm literally like making faces as I'm typing. Like, I'll do a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
A lot, but Wes, and okay. And so I'll be the antagonist and the protagonist. And I'm literally like acting this out as I'm pounding away on the keyboard.
Well, I think that's good. That's the sign of a good writer. Yeah, that part, I don't do the whole hand copy stuff. Like, my hand cramps after like 2 minutes of writing. I can't do that. I'll study something. If I'm trying to go into a market, I'll look at what's working in that market, and I'll take notes by hand. I might transcribe parts or something by hand if it's a video, things like that. Like type, not like handwrite, but I'll pay attention. But it's worked out okay for me, not handwriting everything, copying everything by hand. It kind of seems like a waste of time and inefficient. But the other part of it, though, yeah, hearing, like, going back to capturing somebody's voice, it's like I want to be able to hear their voice in my head, and even different emotional states. Like, that's like I've been really thinking about lately too. Is really, we talk about conversions, like converting a lead to a customer, but really, like, the primary conversion is converting emotional states. It's converting them from one emotional state to another, right? Even if they're a high emotional state with like lots of energy, you say to convert them to like a focused, like, and very like determined emotional state, where it's like take their energy, harness it, still high energy, high emotional state versus low emotional state, but you're focusing it. So that conversion needs to happen. And so you almost get, I want to be in the emotional state. Like, if I have to be down here at the start, I'm gonna be down here and feel it, and I feel like angry or sad or whatever. And then when I'm getting them to here, then I want to be up there and I want to feel like really good. So I'm like a psychopath. You know what I mean? Like, but I think that's like really how you're effective. And so the fact that you do that inherently tells me you probably have had a lot of success with the writing that you do, even though you're not like a copywriter. That's a very good characteristic.
Yeah, I love it when I grab all the screenshots, like on my weekly whisper. It's always good when you send a bulk email and you are thanked.
Yeah.
I get thanked more than taking me off this list. It was like, come on, fool, it's 2022. Just unsubscribe.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're doing something, you're on the right path when they're thanking you for what you're sending them.
Yeah.
So where are we going to send people, man? You've got a mastermind, but you've got an email. Speaking of newsletters and emails, right?
Yeah.
You send something out pretty regularly, as you should if you're a professional writer.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that would be my recommendation. It's so stefanpaulgeorgi.com/subscribe. STEF as in Frank AN, Paul Georgi GEORGI. Not the easiest name in the world, but my email list it's kind of like what you said. I've got people, I get a crazy amount of responses because if we ever do a follow-up, I'll talk about emotional response marketing, which is sort of it's the whole thing I've developed. But essentially, I'm just very authentic, and I share like the good, the bad, the ugly. Usually I'm wrapping it around lessons and, persuasive communication and copy and selling or entrepreneurship or scaling. But, it's very valuable. I'll go through periods where I'm selling lots of stuff. I'll go through periods where I won't sell something for 2 months. Like besides me, I'm selling me and your emotional connection to me. But people on my list love it. And, I get like a 50% 50 open rate because people are looking forward to it. I keep it very, curated, but yeah, would love for anyone who listens to come join me there.
All right. I'm on it right now. I'm clicking here to apply.
Yeah. I know it's an application. You might abandon it, but the application, I'll give you a hint on that, right? So I've got a smaller list because I make people apply, and for those listening, they'll do it. But my list, because of that, like I don't even, this guy Frank Kern, like legend in our space, love Frank. I probably shouldn't say this part publicly. Basically, we did a promo. Like my list is like a fraction of the size of Frank's. My list did like 90% more revenue than Frank's did because the people on it have to apply. So if I didn't have that application, I could have tens of thousands of more people on my list. I've got literally shows you how many people have abandoned. But because of that, it's really a nice weeding out mechanism. And the people who are on my list really want to be on there, want to hear from me. And so it actually has been very effective for me as a marketer. And I develop relationships. I reply to almost every single person, not every single time, but like most of the time I will reply to people on my list and talk to them and stuff.
Well, yeah, it's the old adage, do you want 10% of, or do you want 10 people 100% convinced to buy from you, or 100 people 10% convinced to buy from you?
Totally.
Right. I mean, it's just, but yeah, we get caught up with the big numbers. I got a 10,000 person email list, 20,000 person email list. Can you monetize it? What's the open rate? Are they engaged? Are you getting referrals? So, all right, that's cool. All right, I'll go through that and I'll reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Copy. I'm telling you, I've had other people copy it and they've been like, oh, this is great. So, But,
yeah. And I tell people all this all the time as well. Talking about copying, right? I just launched that 12 weeks to peak. And I took a guy that had a similar program, but it's narrower in its scope. And I just rewrote his whole page.
Yeah.
Like my own voice, my own stories, and I felt bad. Like at the end, it was just, he had like a step 1, step 2, step 3. And I'm like, I don't know how to reword step 1, step 2, step 3. I'm like, I'm just going to use those, but like, yeah. I mean, 99% rewritten,
right.
But following his flow and whatnot. And I sent it to my son. He's 24. He's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of words. Will people read that? I'm like, those that are interested will.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people are just convinced, like, okay, if there's that much here, all right, I'm in. Just jump right to the I'm in button. I'm like, okay, that works. So I had my Infusionsoft book. I had Perry Marshall on. Perry Marshall?
Yeah.
Great guy. I've known of him since like 2007. First thing I bought from him was in 2008. I had him on my podcast, and he had the definitive guide to Google AdWords, and it was red, I think. And so I wrote the definitive guide to Infusionsoft, and it was green, the exact same look and feel, green, but like totally different book. He wrote the Google AdWords cheat sheet. I made the Infusionsoft cheat sheet, and it became 2 pages, but 100% look alike, same structure, but 100% different topic, and people are like, you can do that? I'm like, yeah.
you can do that. That's just smart marketing. Yeah. I'm glad you're telling people that, because it's people they feel like they have to reinvent the wheel, and they don't, literally just take what's working and
don't steal their words, but you can be inspired by the flow and the structure. So anyway, I kept you long enough, man. We went over, and so thanks for sticking with me. I'm linking out to your site. I'm going to go through your application. But man, it's been great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. Really appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
How did you like that little tip on Amazon reviews? Pretty good, huh? So the RMBC method, do your research. I spend so much time digging in with clients and just, like I said, trying to get in their brain to get into the brains of the prospects. I love his quote from Jim Quick: people aren't logical, they're biological. So true. What are you doing to engage with them? What are you doing to help them overcome their fears, their uncertainties, their doubts? It's what we have to do in sales. We have to understand a confused mind says no. We have to understand the adage that nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. So if you're new, you have to explain first how you're the same before you're different. And I've talked about that on many interviews, but when I was selling technology years ago out of Austin, we sold computers, but it was a different form factor. So first I had to reassure my prospects that these were Intel-based computers running the same memory, the same hard drives, the same operating system. It was just a different form factor. So first I had to be the same. Okay, the way you image your computers, the way you distribute them, the way you patch them and maintain them is the same from a software perspective, but we gave them additional layers of control and security. That's how we were different. Then we could justify the higher cost by showing them the ROI, the savings in the operations. We were more expensive up front, but we were more secure. We were less expensive to maintain. So first you have to be the same before you can be different, okay? So that kind of gets into the people aren't logical, they're biological. So how do you convert these emotional states? Our job in sales is hurt and rescue. We have to bring up the pain. We have to make the prospects aware of their pain. We have to get them to acknowledge it and quantify. Put a dollar figure on that pain. Then when you give them a quote, that quote makes sense. If you get them to admit that they are losing $50,000 a year on some inefficiencies, and you give them a $35,000 quote one time, they immediately have a positive ROI, and then it's an ongoing ROI forever, right? Assuming you fix it forever. But even if you solved it, every year, it's still a positive ROI. So you've got to get them to wake up, to acknowledge their issues, okay, harness and direct their energy, focus their energy on the solution. But first you got to get them amped up, but then you got to bring them down. And you've got to be the one to help bring them down and be the one they see when that emotional state changes. There's a lot to it. It's what we cover in the Make Every Sale program, makeeverysale.com. If you want to do it on demand, sellmoreofeverything.com is the live group. We meet every week, and I help you do just that. So come join us, all right? I'll help you sell more better and make more money. Now go sell something.